Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Rux, I'm a Western tropical astrologer, and today we're going to be talking about the new moon in Virgo. This is coming up on the 23rd of August. It is happening at 6:06 a.m. GMT time. Of course, you can adjust that for your own time zone. And the new moon is taking place at 0 degrees of Virgo. 0 degrees, 22 minutes to be super specific because, hey, Virgo, attention to details. Who is going to feel this new moon the most? Well, those of you who have planets or angles or important points in the natal chart around 0 to 1 degrees of Virgo, Pisces, Sagittarius, and Gemini, essentially the mutable signs. Now, who's going to like this new moon the most? You might ask. Those of you who have planets or angles around 0 to 1 degrees of Cancer, Scorpio, Taurus, and Capricorn. The new moon is going to form a harmonious aspect with your natal planetary placements. Now, this new moon is going to be full of surprises. I know. Astrologers always say that. Surprise, surprise. But honestly, it will be. Why is that? There is an astrological explanation for this. The new moon is going to square Uranus. So we have a new beginning in aspect or fueled by the planet of novelty, shock, disruption, rebellion, innovation. And of course, Uranus is always surprising. It likes to keep us on our toes. It likes to keep things unpredictable. It's like the lightning bolt. It's like, bam, here you go, out of the blue, out of nowhere. So unexpected news, sudden developments are probably going to be the theme of this new moon. A new moon is, of course, symbolically associated with a new beginning, with a fresh start. So whatever news comes up at the time of this new moon, it essentially is going to probably take a while to be implemented and for us to kind of like to see how it plays out in the day-to-day reality. The point of culmination, astrologically speaking, in the sky is generally a full moon. So now we have the seed moment, and at the time of the full moon, 6 months from now, we're going to have the reaping what we have sown moment, so to speak. This new moon, I'm going to get into even more of the astrology. This new moon is going to be ruled by Mercury in Leo. Mercury is going to be in a harmonious aspect to Mars in Libra. Now, Mercury in Leo communicates in a bold, colorful, creative manner. It also wants a lot of attention for what it says. It wants its words, its messages to be heard. So you can rest assured that the messages of this new moon will be heard. There is going to be this, symbolic spotlight placed on them. Someone is going to be speaking loud and clear in your life, and they're going to say, hey, pay attention to me. I have something to say. Or you might be that person that says, hey, I have a message for you all. Let me take the floor. Mercury is going to be in a harmonious aspect to Mars, so I feel like the messages will be delivered fast. It also feels like our minds are going to be really switched on and sharp and geared towards action at the time of this new moon. Whatever changes are coming up, whatever new developments are coming up, they're probably going to be implemented really quickly. They're probably going to be talked through really quickly, and everyone is sort of like in a rush to get things going, to get things off the ground. Now, what's going to help us at the time of this new moon? A lot of openness to working quickly and collaborating quickly with other people, an openness to think creatively and to take action based off of those ideas. Also, what's going to help us is probably a sense of humor and sort of like taking things in our own stride and saying, okay, if this is the news, let me set the wheels in motion, let me adapt, let me get things off the ground, so to speak. Now, because the new one is happening in not in Leo, Mercury is in Leo, because the new one is happening in Virgo, we might also see a focus on topics such as routine, work in general. Virgo is, archetypally speaking, the sign of service. So the focus is probably going to be on how we are of service, how we are useful, how we make ourselves of service to others, how we help others in practical ways. Virgo is the sign of improvement, constant improvement. You know, that sort of discerning, critical, analytical quality of Virgo is all about polishing things, editing things, improving things, doing things a tiny little bit better. The new one is probably going to put the spotlight also on small but effective steps towards improvement. Every little helps, as they say. So health is also going to be another, I'm like, health, I was thinking about it in my head. So health is also going to be another topic that's probably going to be sort of like central to the new moon, to the themes of the new moon, because Virgo is very strongly concerned with how systems work, how systems function, and our body is almost like a well-oiled system / machine that is keeping us alive. So the topic of health might come up, and with it the topic of habits and healthy habits or unhealthy habits, the change of habits. Routines and habits are probably going to be disrupted by new ideas, new information coming to the surface. The other thing is there can be news of innovations and sort of like technological advancements or breakthroughs at the time of this new moon, essentially having an impact on our health, but potentially also on the way that we work. New ways of working involving new technologies, digital innovation affecting healthcare and our daily lives might come up in the news. Virgo is also very strongly concerned with the administrative and logistical side of life and the technical side of life, right? Virgo is the sign of the engineer. All of these, so administrative, logistical, technical tasks, might be done differently from the time of this new moon onwards because of new discoveries, new developments, especially in the world of technology and communication. Things will probably move at a faster pace. They will become more efficient in some shape or form. And what does that mean for people, for humans, for individuals? We might need to adjust our techniques. We might need to adapt to this new way of working, a new way of being of service to other people. Uranus in Gemini, like I said, is the planet that's going to feature very strongly also at the time of this new moon. Uranus in Gemini, this transit overall, is probably going to bring with it a lot of disruption and innovation of fields such as education, transportation, commerce, sales. But also we can expect big sort of discoveries or breakthroughs in the sphere of languages and how languages is used. I'm also thinking of like computer programming and so on. So all of this can also kind of like feature into the themes of the new moon in Virgo in August. And now obviously we're going to go through the updates for each of the 12 zodiac signs, and my very first recommendation would be to listen to the update for your rising sign, because these horoscopes are built with the rising sign in mind, these general horoscopes. Also, for those of you who are new here, and maybe also for those of you who have been following me for some time, I wanted to mention that I'm a full-time consulting astrologer. I work with clients on a day-to-day basis. I consider it my mission to help people reconnect with their soul's intentions with the use of astrology, with the help of astrology. And I aim to make astrology practical and applicable to our day-to-day lives. Astrology is meant to be helpful. It's meant to help us make better informed decisions, gather insights, understand the whys of our life. The why is this happening? What does it mean? Where am I headed? Why am I doing this? Why is this happening to me in this format? Astrology is also a fantastic tool when it comes to aligning ourselves with the cosmic cycles, because everything in nature has cycles. Think of the seasons, think of a plant. It comes from a seed, it grows, it blossoms, there's flowers, it maybe gives fruit, and then it withers. So we have seasons. Our lives go through seasons as well. They go through cycles, and astrology can help us understand those cycles and how we can work with them, as opposed to trying to swim upstream and hit all sorts of walls. So if you want to work with me, if you want to book a personal astrological consultation, the one very important thing that you need for that is your date, time, and place of birth. Obviously, all people know their date of birth, but not all of them might know their time of birth. So I do encourage you to speak with your parents, to find your birth certificate, and to find out your time of birth, because that is essential for an astrological consultation. And you can book a reading with me via my website, writteninthestars-astrology.com. Of course, you can also find it in the pinned comment section and in the description box. And if you are in a rush, if you are at a crossroads, if you're dealing with a matter that is time sensitive and you need astrological insight sooner rather than later, there is an emergency reading option as well on my website. Generally, for regular astrological consultations, the waiting time is between like a few weeks to a month, maybe even a little bit over a month. But if you are, I repeat, in a rush, if you're dealing with an emergency, there is an emergency reading option after you purchase that we aim to meet in a maximum of 3 days time after the time of your purchase. So just know that you do have options. And now, without further ado, let us dive into the updates for each of the 12 zodiac signs. We're going to start off with, obviously, the one and only Aries. Aries suns and Aries risings. 23rd of August, active 3 days before, 3 days after, my dear Aries. You have a new moon taking place in your 6th house of day-to-day work, habits, co-workers, employees, if you're hiring or if you're already employing anyone. So this new moon brings with it some sort of a fresh start on a day-to-day basis. Maybe there's a new colleague coming in. Maybe there's a new project coming in. Maybe there is a new software coming in. Maybe there's a new tool that you will have to use on a day-to-day basis in your work. Essentially, the gist of it is the new one is bringing with it a new way of working, and that can have something to do with the tasks that you are involved with. It could have something to do with the tools that you use, especially when it comes to communication, when it comes to language, when it comes to interacting with other people. There can also be new people coming in that will somehow ask of you to communicate in novel ways. So there may be an initial sort of like disruption in communication, or a need to communicate differently, maybe to communicate in a different language, maybe to communicate using a different tool, so to speak. You might need to learn something new in order to do your job moving forward. The thing is, initially this could feel very disruptive, but I do believe you're probably going to like it a lot more than you thought you would. I do believe you're going to like working with these new people. I do believe you're going to like utilizing this new tool. And I also believe that you are not alone in sort of like having to handle this novelty. You have trusted collaborators. You have people who are on your side. Maybe you have like a business partner that you can count on, or like a work bestie that you can count on. And from a health perspective, to me, it feels like new information is going to reach you. And you might have an aha moment and realize, hey, I got to do things differently. I have to implement a new habit. I've been doing this all wrong, or I've been engaging in this habit on a day-to-day basis, thinking that it is maybe healthy for me, but now I realize it is not healthy for me. So it could be like a moment of enlightenment. Some of you could also start a new job altogether, or like a new health regimen altogether. Taurus suns and Taurus risings. 23rd of August, new moon in Virgo, active 3 days before, 3 days after, squaring Uranus and Gemini. Okay, so Taurians, fresh start on your doorstep. Especially for those of you who have kids, this new beginning might be very strongly connected with your children. So your children might be engaging in a new sort of like routine. Maybe they have a new routine. Maybe their schedule is going to look different. Their calendar, their diaries look different. So maybe they used to participate in a lot of extracurricular activities, and now they're no longer going to all of these extracurricular activities, or maybe they're going to a completely different set of activities. So your children's sort of like day-to-day life is probably going to look different. Now, there is a chance that money is playing a significant part in this. So maybe how much money you have available, how many resources you have available to kind of like to spend on your kids is probably going to dictate what your children's lives look like. Now, there's a possibility that one of your kids might insist, hey, I really want to go like take tennis classes, and you might be thinking, oh my god, this is going to cost me an arm and a leg. Is there anyone, if you're struggling from a financial perspective, I would take a step back and ask myself, is there anyone from your family that can maybe sort of like offset or cover some of those costs? Maybe it's like a grandparent, for example. I mean, it's worth a shot. Some of you could also have a bit of an aha moment, Taurians, when it comes to how you spend your time and energy and resources and money. You might experience this moment of enlightenment and say, wow, I've been spending money on all sorts of random stuff that I'm not really that much into. And you might decide, hey, I'm going to change that. When? Immediately. Some of you could also start a creative project, potentially at home or connected with the home. So maybe it involves, I don't know, redecorating or rearranging the furniture or creating a gallery wall. And once again, if you do that, I feel like your decision to go about it in a certain way is probably very financially motivated. So maybe now you have more money and you can spend some money on like nice decorations, or maybe you want to spend less money but still live in a beautiful place that is aligned with your needs, and maybe you decide to do a do-it-yourself kind of job. Last but not least, there is a chance that your values might be shifting, especially when it comes to what you expect in love and in romance. And I feel like maybe up until this point you had some really sort of like particular expectations, and now you might say, hey, I don't care about all of these things. I've changed, and that's good, and that's totally your prerogative. Gemini suns and Gemini risings. 23rd of August, active 3 days before, 3 days after, we have a new moon in Virgo happening in your house of home, family, and living situation, squaring Uranus. Geminis, I feel like you want to break free from your existing home and living situation. Now, this could be symbolic, this could be metaphorically speaking, or this could be very literal. So there is a possibility that you might feel very restless when it comes to how you're currently sort of like living, how your home life looks like, and you might decide, hey, I've had enough, I'm going to move, I'm going to say goodbye to my housemates, I'm going to start looking for a different home. There is a very high chance of you deciding to leave a home behind, or to break away from an existing setup at home. Now, this could also have something to do with maybe the way that you interact with certain people who are in your home. It could be family members, it could be other people maybe who live with you. That's why I mentioned a housemate, a flatmate. You might decide from a communications perspective that you're no longer going to hold back when it comes to expressing yourselves kind of like fully, authentically, just because you know that you're going to be criticized by a parent, for instance. So you might no longer kind of like sugarcoat things or try to come across in a manner that is not 100% aligned with who you are authentically. You might say, hey, this is who I am, take it or leave it. I mean, criticize me all you want, but I'm not gonna care about it anymore. There is a very strong energy of rebellion in the air at the time of this new moon, my dear Geminis, especially in terms of how you come across. And some family members, some people in your home might be shocked, and I feel like you are sort of like enjoying a little bit the fact that you're shocking them. You might be saying some shocking things, and you're like kind of, yeah, having fun whilst doing it. Last but not least, you may decide to break away from an old way of thinking, Geminis, an old way of thinking that you might have inherited from the family side. And as much as that could feel very sort of like sudden, and you might not really know how to kind of like handle the new energy, to me it looks like you're probably going to handle it very well. And you're going to ultimately congratulate yourselves for having done this. Cancerians, Cancer suns and Cancer risings. 23rd of August, active 3 days before, 3 days after, new moon in Virgo in your 3rd house. Cancerians, something is no longer working, and it might have something to do with your car or with your preferred mode of transportation. It could be very, very kind of like surprising, very out of the blue. Also, very much out of the blue, you might need to, for example, change your daily commute, or going to the office a lot more, or just sort of like go about your daily kind of routines differently. Now, this does not seem to be something that you have consciously chosen to do, Cancerians. It feels like developments, news, circumstances completely outside of your control impact this part of your life, and you just kind of have to roll with it. You just sort of like have to adapt. I feel like you might need to pay more for like a car, or for like transportation, or for a new mode of transportation, or maybe in order to like fix your existing mode of transportation. You might also have to start learning how to drive, or maybe how to ride a bike, or like a scooter, or like a motorcycle, or something like that. But again, it doesn't seem to be something that you would have consciously chosen to do. You seem to be a tiny bit forced by external factors. The thing is, whatever it is that you need to do that gets you out of your comfort zone, and it could be something that you were afraid of, or it could be something that generates quite a bit of anxiety on your end. If you do it, I am absolutely firmly convinced that your self-worth, your self-esteem, and your confidence are going to grow tremendously. You're going to feel more empowered. You're going to be more active. You're going to feel more in charge. You're going to sort of like carry yourselves differently. There can also be sudden unexpected news coming up concerning a sibling, a cousin, maybe a neighbor. If you do hear news in this around this time, Cancerians, it's probably sudden. It's probably not necessarily very pleasant, and it might require you to maybe kind of like travel at short notice. But the news doesn't seem to be about you. It seems to be about someone else, but you do care about them, and maybe you want to help them, and maybe you want to kind of like travel to be there for them, I'd say. Also, I would be generally very careful on the road when it comes to crossing the street around the time of this new moon, and just sort of like watch your surroundings, especially when you're in a mode of transportation or in a car. There's a chance that maybe your car's, I don't know, like mirror might be scratched in a parking lot. So there could be quite a few things of this nature. And that is Cancerians. Leos, Leo suns and Leo risings. New moon in Virgo, 23rd of August, active 3 days before, 3 days after, in your 2nd house, squaring Uranus. Okay, so the future is essentially different. There seems to be an energy of disruption in the air, Leos, when it comes to one of the following. Um, the flow of money in your life, your income, your sources of income, but also a disruption of your plans for the future because of something going on from a financial standpoint. Your values could also change very, very drastically, very dramatically, and you might decide to sort of like put your money where your mouth is. So because you're having a revelation, you're like, all of a sudden I see things differently. I think differently. I'm going to speak my truth. I want my future to look differently. And you're probably going to feel inspired to act on it. And the channel of action seems to be financial. Now, there can be a new source of income coming into your life, Leos, at the time of this new moon, but it will probably require you to be open to working in a new way, in a novel way, in a different way, to do things differently, to work with a totally different kind of like set of people, to maybe integrate yourselves in a different team. Maybe it's a team that speaks a different language. Maybe you feel a tiny little bit alien amongst them. You might need to step into a new role. That's also a possibility, especially in a group of people. You might need to be more sort of like vocal and visible. There is also a possibility that you might decide to, I'm gonna say break up. Break away from an existing community, an existing group of people, or an existing organization, because you realize that they are no longer aligned with your goals and plans for the future, or maybe they are no longer aligned with your value system, or maybe they don't value you as much as you deserve, and that's okay. And I feel like there's a big part of you that is actually really proud of having the courage to do something this bold. Last but not least, there is a chance that you might receive an unexpected piece of news, maybe like an unexpected invitation from a friend or from a group of people, and you might sort of like need to scramble and kind of like reorganize your day-to-day and rethink your budget and your expenses, because maybe you do want to attend this, I don't know, like event or party or whatever it is, but you hadn't budgeted for it. So now you're like, what am I doing? How can I adjust? Because I want to make this work. Virgos, the stars of this new moon, 23rd of August, active 3 days before, 3 days after, Virgo suns, Virgo risings. This new moon puts the spotlight on you, on your life direction, on your identity, on how you show up in the world, on your physical body, on your appearance, on how the world sees you. And you are probably stepping into a completely different role, especially from a professional perspective. I feel like this new moon brings with it a fresh start, a fresh start involving a change of course, a radical sort of a very disruptive change of course and trajectory from a professional standpoint. Maybe you're stepping into a completely different industry. Maybe you are in need of I'm sorry, in need of a complete rebrand, including from like a looks perspective, because you can no longer show up to work, I don't know, like dress casually. Maybe you're going to start working in an institution where you have to, I don't know, dress up to the nines or dress more formally, or hide your face tattoo. I mean, I don't think there are any Virgos out there who have a face tattoo, but maybe there are. Maybe there are. Let me know in the comments, especially Virgo risings. So you might need to show up differently because of the novel path that you're on in a professional setup. There's also a possibility that unexpected developments in the career sector might get you to sort of like question where you're headed in terms of your life direction. And part of you could feel like, hey, my industry is changing, my company is changing. Maybe this is the perfect opportunity for me to shift gears, to step down a completely different path. Now, maybe the decision to step down a completely different path has been taken a while ago, but maybe you're only now sharing it with the world. And the world could be like, oh gosh, wow, this is novel, this is sudden, like how come we thought you were an artist and now you are a software engineer or a life coach? What is going on? So you're probably going to have to communicate in a new way. You're probably going to have to learn to communicate in a new way as well. And the reviews from the outside world are probably going to be mixed, but that's okay, because generally people respond in all sorts of weird ways to surprises and to the unpredictable. It's going to be a very empowering new moon, my dear Virgos. But I do believe you are going to be a tiny little bit anxious, because you just don't know what to expect. You just don't know how the world is going to react. Libra suns and Libra risings. 23rd of August, active 3 days before, 3 days after, we've got a new moon in Virgo squaring Uranus. Libras, so many things. So a fresh start for you behind the scenes. I feel like you are starting to clean up your life and give up on whatever it is that is no longer serving you. So do a proper, thorough cleanup of your home, your closets, your friendship circle, your belief system, your approach to maybe like health, wellness, and well-being. Speaking of health, wellness, and well-being, I feel like you're probably going to get into a more sort of like consistent routine when it comes to how you take care of yourselves, not just from a physical health perspective, but also from a mental and emotional health perspective. You're probably going to become much more aware of your blind spots, Libra. And it's probably going to be like a sudden jolt kind of thing. It's like, I didn't know that I was doing all of these things the wrong way, or that all of these things were sort of like sabotaging me. There can also be some unexpected news coming up that sort of like changes things for you. Where can this news come from? Institutions, legal entities, courts of law, changes in legislation, maybe educational or academic institutions. So there could, for example, be a change in legislation that affects your, I don't know, retirement fund or like pension fund. And you might need to sort of like take a bit of a step back and ask yourselves, okay, so with this in mind, how do I go about ensuring that I have a solid enough maybe like pension pot? Now, there is a part of me that feels like you could get some sort of like sudden relief from something that was causing you harm and you didn't even know of it. As much as there could be disruption in your sort of like existing routines and like plans at the time of this new moon, Libras, and initially this can cause anxiety. It could be like, wow, I did not account for this happening. You might realize that you're much better off because of this disruption, as opposed to the way that things were going for you beforehand. You do seem to have good friends on your side. So whatever it is that you're dealing with, maybe an unexpected issue, an unexpected problem, an unexpected issue with like an institution such as, I don't know, like a governmental institution, do not hesitate to reach out to your friends. Do not hesitate to reach out to people in your circle, to people in your group of kind of like peers, because they are there for you to kind of smooth things out. And that is Libra. Scorpio suns and Scorpio risings. 23rd of August, active 3 days before, 3 days after, new moon in Virgo. New plans for the future, my dear Scorpios. So this is a great time to set new goals, new intentions, and to also look at the future from a slightly different angle. Now, there will be events, there will be news, there will be elements that will prompt you looking at the future from a slightly different angle. what kind of events, what kind of circumstances. So I do believe that there could be some unexpected developments occurring on one of the following fronts: debts, taxes, inheritance, your partner's resources, um, investments, loans. I mean, that's debts pretty much. There is a possibility that all of a sudden, for example, you might hear from your boss, you might hear from your company, um, hey, we're no longer going to pay you X% on commission for each sale. We're going to pay you less. And this could be a bit of an issue to start with, because it sort of like interferes with the vision that you had of the future. But actually, I believe it's essentially making room for you to pursue different projects and different goals, and maybe even different jobs that are much more suited to the direction that you want to grow into. So what feels like maybe like an initial slap could actually be a blessing in disguise. Now, this could also be the time when you enter a new group of people, a new community, a new organization, a new collective of people. You might feel like you're entering a group of total and complete strangers. These people are very different. They're weird. They speak like differently. They think differently. You don't really know how to talk to them. You don't really know what they're into. Their values are very different. So you might need to adjust and adapt. Are you going to be able to do that? 200%. You're going to wow them. You're going to dazzle them. So my recommendation is to have a little bit of faith in your skills, in your mind, in how your brain works. Sudden news coming up also from a friend, very possibly, some sort of crisis in their life. Are you going to be able to maybe support them, maybe offer a little bit of like advice or offer some encouragement? Yes, I do believe so. A friend could also very suddenly let you know that they are leaving the country, or that they're doing something very kind of like disruptive, which means that you're potentially going to spend less time with them. I do want to put it out there. Sagittarius suns and Sagittarius risings. 23rd of August, active 3 days before, 3 days after. We have a new moon in Virgo, squaring Uranus. Sagittarians. Disruption, leading to a completely different path, a new beginning, a new way of working. When it comes to one of the following: your career sector, all of a sudden, someone might let you know, hey, I'm no longer going to be working with you. It could be a business partner. It could be a collaborator. It could be out of the blue. And you might need to make totally and completely different plans. You might need to find a different business partner. You might need to find a different investor, maybe I don't know, like a different accountant. But it feels like someone from the outside is sort of unexpectedly throwing a curveball, and that affects your professional life. Are you going to be able to figure things out? Yes, and very quickly. You just have to like talk to people. You just have to talk to people around you, talk to your friends, and immediately it looks like someone can support you, and you're probably going to end up in a better place than you were up until this point. There is a possibility you might start collaborating at the same time with someone new, on the career front. It feels like you have to learn to think and to speak differently. There is a chance you might also have to learn to use new tools in your work, and that's because there's a lot of like innovation happening in your work sector, and people are asking for different things than the ones that you were used to. Once again, to me, it feels like if you can bring other people on board, if you can sort of like collaborate with other people, ask for advice, make it like a joint sort of like venture, this whole process, this new chapter can be a lot smoother. Now, there can also be some sudden developments happening in your relationship sector, my dear Sagittarians. Your partner might all of a sudden kind of like, again, throw a curveball, and that might impact also what you do career-wise, but also the way that you show up in the world. So I'm going to give you an example. Let's say you've been working with your partner so far, and all of a sudden they let you know, hey, I no longer want us to keep on working on this business. I'm going to go and get a totally different job, and you might need to find solutions very fast. There is a chance that for some Sagittarians, this new moon can also bring a change in status in terms of relationship status. Now, it could go sort of like either way. Some single Sagittarians, especially Sagittarius risings, could announce the world that they are literally about to get married, or that they are dating someone and it's really serious and they're getting engaged and so on. So there's this sort of like energy of like shock surprise. But equally, there's a possibility that some maybe like married or in long-term relationship Sagittarians might let the world know, hey, we are separating. So it could go either way. Last but not least, there is a possibility of like sudden travel at the time of this new moon. If it does happen, it is probably going to turn out really well, and it's probably going to be very productive. So just as an FYI. Capricorns, Capricorn suns, Capricorn risings. 23rd of August, active 3 days before, 3 days after. We have a new moon in Virgo in your 9th house, squaring Uranus and Gemini. What does that mean? Changes in legislation are probably going to affect your day-to-day work. There is also a possibility that new people coming into your work, new tools, new tasks, new clients coming into your workspace might ask of you to think differently and to look at the world from a different perspective. And all of these factors could challenge your existing worldview, your existing set of beliefs. And there is a very high possibility that pretty much Capricorns, especially Capricorn risings, until the middle of 2026, you might go through a process of letting go and surrendering and releasing and emptying, metaphorically speaking, emptying your existing belief system of preconceived notions or of maybe prejudice, or maybe just sort of like outdated worldviews and philosophies. This new moon can also put the spotlight on foreign lands, your connection with foreign lands, foreign countries. There is a possibility you might start work in a new environment, or your work might require you to like travel more, or there is a chance that you might have to interact with people from different countries, from different cultures a lot more, and therefore you have to be like sensitive in terms of how you communicate, in terms of not kind of like saying the wrong thing, or misinterpreting their sort of like culture or customs. Some of you could also start a fresh chapter from an educational perspective, and especially from an academic perspective. Now, that means that your day-to-day is going to look very different. You probably expect that. What you probably do not expect is the magnitude of the change on a day-to-day basis. So do be prepared for your schedule to go literally out the window. Expect the unexpected, adapt, be flexible, and you're going to be fine. You're going to be great, actually. But if you are very rigid about your day-to-day, this might be a tiny bit of a struggle. Last but not least, new legislation might be coming up in terms of how much tax you pay, in terms of how much you owe, I don't know, like the government. That's also very possible. There is also a chance that in-laws, if you have a partner and if you have in-laws, therefore in-laws might have some sudden news, some big piece of news that they're going to share with you, maybe connected with their work, maybe connected with their health. What does that mean for you? Well, it could mean somehow kind of like a change in your routine, maybe a change in your routine for you and your partner. Maybe because of things going on in the life of in-laws, you now need to take the kids to school, whereas before it was your partner taking the kids to school. So there could be a very sort of like practical kind of like shift that happens as a result of these changes. Aquarius suns and Aquarius risings. 23rd of August, active 3 days before, 3 days after, we've got a new moon in your 8th house, squaring Uranus. Okay, so new beginning when it comes to the fears that you have around children. I'm just gonna say this: fun, enjoyment, entertainment. Now you might be thinking, what do you mean, Rux? Fears around enjoyment? Yes, I mean it's a known fact that. I mean, I don't know if it's a known fact. Maybe I know it. Maybe some people don't know it. Psychology tells us that people have such a thing as a happiness threshold, as an enjoyment threshold also. So they only let themselves celebrate or enjoy life up to a certain point. And then because they are unfamiliar with a state of going past that threshold, they may be sort of like self-sabotage in order to return to the point that they are comfortable with. So you might actually have an aha moment, Aquarians, where you say, hey, why am I holding myself back from enjoying life more, from kind of like doing more of what makes me happy? So this new moon can essentially kickstart a process of psychological transformation when it comes to how you go about your passions, hobbies, the activities that make you feel alive, that you enjoy doing just for the sake of it. There is also a possibility that you might be thinking very differently after the time of this new moon. You might think very differently about topics such as children or even romantic love. Now, what seems to be going on? To me, it looks like there's someone in your life helping you challenge and question your fears and the way that you approached some of these sectors up until this point. It could be a partner, it could be a therapist, it could be a counselor, it could be a coach, it could be a random person who you've started talking to at, I don't know, your Pilates class. You might also decide to completely transform and essentially initiate the transformation. You might decide to completely transform the way that you express yourselves creatively, especially those of you who have a creative outlet, Aquarians, and especially if you have a creative outlet involving words. For example, if you've been writing songs, if you've been writing music, you might decide to be super experimental and go into a totally different genre that you have no clue about, that you're thinking, oh God, is this going to be a total and complete, I don't know, like monstrosity? If you are starting to work with someone new on a creative project, you're probably going to enjoy it a lot more than you think you will. There is also a possibility that those of you who have kids might see your children experiencing some unexpected transformations, some unexpected maybe shifts. For instance, all of a sudden you might notice, oh my God, you are a teen, you are falling in love, you are going through your first heartbreak, and it could be very shocking for parents. I do believe you can be there for them, even though maybe this development in terms of your children is taking you by surprise. I do believe you can kind of like offer your support and your insights, and that may actually strengthen the relationship, I'd say. And last but not least, Pisces suns and Pisces risings, 23rd of August, active 3 days before, 3 days after. We have a new moon in your 7th house, squaring Uranus. Bum, 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 bum. So new partnership or new beginning when it comes to a partnership, when it comes to a relationship, maybe when it comes to a collaboration. Now, what type of flavor does this new beginning have? You might start collaborating with someone new when it comes to a matter connected with your home life. So you might start collaborating with a new contractor, for example. So when I say new beginning when it comes to relationships and partnerships, a lot of people think about romance. But we have many relationships, and especially this new moon might actually emphasize relationships that have an element of like service to them. So maybe like someone who is in your service or who is kind of like about to be in your service. So you might start working, for example, like I said, with a new contractor for the home if you're remodeling the home, or you might start working with someone who comes into your home, maybe like a personal trainer, for example, every week to help you get in shape. So there could be sort of like a new person coming into your life and into your home. Maybe they're a little bit different. Maybe they're a little bit weird. Maybe you don't know what to expect of them. Maybe you haven't worked with anyone of this type before. So maybe they're a totally normal person, average person, but you just don't know how it's going to be. And I think it's going to be great, and I think you're going to like it. And I do believe actually they're going to help you make the changes and the transformations that you've been aiming for, but that you could not maybe do on your own. This new moon can also put the spotlight on your spouse or on your long-term committed partner. For those of you who are in a committed partnership, your partner might experience a very sort of like sudden, a very disruptive and sudden and unpredictable change in their work life. So all of a sudden there could be new management coming in, or their company might get sold, or they might even decide to leave their job because they can no longer make things work in the existing, I don't know, like climate, let's say. This could kind of like catch you a little bit off guard, Pisces. However, the thing is, you're probably going to be able to make things work as a couple, even though initially this could hit you, as I said, a bit out of nowhere. There is a possibility that the way that you sort of like interact with a family member might also shift. So the dynamic of the relationship might shift. It could be something that comes from them as opposed of it sort of like coming from you. So they might reach out and say, hey, I don't want you to drop in uninvited anymore because I'm setting stronger boundaries. And that's totally okay. Initially, as I said, maybe you didn't think that this was like a good thing, or it just sort of caught you off guard. But you can make things work. There's also a possibility that because of changes that are happening in the life of a partner, my dear Pisces, for those of you who have partners, you might need to consider a complete and total change of residence. So maybe your partner gets offered a different job in a different country, and you have to all of a sudden consider relocation, and you've never thought about that, and it didn't even cross your mind, and now you're like, I don't know, on Zoopla looking for houses in the UK. It could be anywhere. Communication is absolutely essential. There can be a lot of new information coming up at the time of this new moon. Also, a lot of new information coming up, not just from partners, but also from family members. The thing is, whatever makes its way to you, Pisces, you do seem to be equipped with the tools and the skills to make things function. So that is Pisces. Folks, I want to thank you for tuning in, for listening to your new moon horoscope. Let me know in the comments what it is that you're kicking off at the time of this new moon, and what the focus is on in your life, and what are you changing in your life, because the focus is very much on disruption and breaking away from the old and letting the new come in. For those of you who want to work with me, once again, you can find me on my website, written in the stars-astrology.com, pinned in the comments section and also in the description box. And if you like my content, don't forget to like, to subscribe, share it. You can also make a donation to my channel using the thanks button. I'm also active on Instagram and TikTok. My Instagram handle is ruxunbelievable. Same on TikTok. And on Instagram, I actually post a lot of stories. So if you're there, why not follow me? Thank you once again, and I will see you next time. Bye.